Yo, 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 what's up, peeps? So, today I'm gonna go over a couple changes that I made in my deck, and I'm also gonna go ahead and play a game and just, kind of see how those changes have been working with my deck. So, let's go ahead and hop right into this. So, here I'm playing against an opponent who is playing Dredge. Which, has been a combo that's been around for years. So, I think almost everyone's familiar with it. A couple changes I've made with my deck. I added in another copy of Golos in here. Just because Golos is a card that, if I ever get it, I never feel like it's not going to be useful. Even if I use Golos' ability into another Golos, I always get some value out of it because I can still cast it and get a landfall trigger. So yeah, that definitely helps me with getting Emrakul out. Or hard casting Emrakul or whatever I need to do. But either ways, Golos is just a powerhouse, so I decided to add one more of him to the deck. Obviously here, first turn for my opponent, just playing a Wooded Foothills. And for me, I'm just playing a Mine. Opponent goes and sacks the Foothills to go get out Stomping Ground, and they cast the Haggle at the end of my step. Which is pretty smart, making the most out of their mana right there. Also, since they're trying to get cards into the graveyard, it definitely accomplishes that. And then, for the most part, once they get a life and a loam in the graveyard, they have a way to constantly keep putting cards in their graveyard because it has Dredge 3, which means instead of drawing a card, they can just put 3 cards into their graveyard and take life from the loam from their graveyard back to their hand. Also, they can constantly keep, casting it to return land cards back from their graveyard, which means they can now go get a fresh land from their graveyard, keep fetching all their lands out, and like y'all can imagine, just keep repeating the process. To me over here, I'm just trying to assemble Tron as quick as possible. Then once I saw a Creeping Chill hit the graveyard, I knew here my time was getting pretty slim, so I had to find a way to either try to win this game or keep my opponent from just completely running away with the game. And like y'all see here, putting a lot of cards into the graveyard. Bloodghast came out, Cycling Forests, and then once the Narco Amoeba hits the graveyard and it comes back because it entered from, let's see, when Narcomoeba is put into your graveyard from your library, you may put it onto the battlefield. And this causes the Prized Amalgam trigger to go off. And like y'all can imagine, they just come pouring out from the graveyard. And then all of a sudden, there's a whole bunch of damage on the battlefield. Now, typically I see this combo with Vengevine as well. I think if Vengevine had showed up, that would have just been over the top, and there's absolutely nothing that I could have done. But here, when I was counting the amount of damage, the only thing that I could do that really even possibly saved my life is go ahead and exile a Prized Amalgam, and then pass turn and see what happens. But this is mainly because I was holding out for Ugin the Spirit Dragon. But my opponent casted a Conflagrate, and sure enough, that extra 7 damage right there was it for the game. So getting damage from Conflagrate, plus, getting attacked by a Bloodghast, Narcomoeba, and 3 Prized Amalgams, that definitely finished the game up there. Alright, let's get ready for game number 2. Alright, so this is game number 2 here. Of course, I chose to play first. Knowing what my opponent was playing, I was just trying to keep a hand that would give me the Tron turn 3 or 4 reliably. And moderately have some more options. And this hand seemed like it could do it because, I could cast a Chromatic Sphere and then crack it next turn to go get Oath of Nissa out. That way I could potentially see some extra cards in my library just because I'm trying to get Tron online. Opponent plays a Wooded Fittails against to start off. I end up drawing into a Karn Liberated again, which is not bad. If you have turn 3 Karn and then turn 4 Karn as well, you can definitely exile a lot of things your opponent controls. In this case, I have turn 3 Karn. Granted, yes, my opponent did start going off with the Narcomoeba and, getting cards in the graveyard, but there was no life from the Loam in the graveyard yet. Then another Narcomoeba comes out. The opponent here is bringing back the prized amalgam that was in the grave. And now it's like you all can imagine, it's pretty easy for me to just go ahead and say the easy cast here is going to be Karn Liberated. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get rid of all the creatures that could potentially, put me on a clock. That's faster than maybe 2 turns. So I got rid of Prized Amalgam. Next turn my opponent finally got life from the Loam in the graveyard. So now yes, their Dredge engine is completely online next turn. Then I went ahead and played the Cascading Cataracts. At first I was thinking to myself, oh man, I don't have enough mana. And I completely missed the Oath, but then after looking back at the battlefield, I was like, okay, yeah, I have Oath. Why don't I just go ahead and cast it? But like you all can imagine, because I had a Doubling Season in hand, the payoff with Doubling Season first and then Nicol Bolas Dragon God, it's not Dragon God, Nicol Bolas Planeswalker. It was just too much of a lure for me not to do it. Let's see. But after that, just exiled another card from my opponent's hand. And then, like you all can imagine, next turn, they went ahead and used life from the Loam. Because they're just trying to get more cards into their graveyard. Then they start cycling a little bit more. And of course, again, they're going to attack my Karn Liberated here with the 2 Narcomoebas. Granted, it's only 2 damage though, so I'm not worried about it. Then, on my next turn, I just went ahead and casted, like you all can imagine, Nicol Bolas Planeswalker. And after casting Nicol Bolas Planeswalker, I'm sure my opponent got a kick out of it here when they saw that I used its ultimate ability. So, made them discard 7 cards, sacrifice 7 permanents, and take 7 damage. And then I used my Karn here to exile a Doubling Season from my hand. Just because there were no threats on the battlefield. And, resetting the game is kind of alluring. But at that point in time, my opponent just went ahead and scooped. Now, I think a couple comments that was said revolved around mainly Doubling Season. Because it's not something you really see in Modern very often. So my opponent was just commenting on that before, but I guess for some reason it deleted the messages. Maybe it's because it was said while we were sideboarding though. But yeah, my opponent definitely made a comment about the deck being very unique, and that, Doubling Season for MVP. And it was obviously, pretty hilarious for them to see Planeswalkers being played against their deck. Let's see. And then my opponent was asking about if I absolutely need Oath to go ahead and cast my Planeswalkers. and just kind of explaining how the deck works. Don't necessarily need Oath because I do play Cascading Cataracts. So the start for me here is pretty normal. Just turn 1 Power Plant into Expedition Map. My opponent turn 1 Stomping Ground. Full Stomping Ground of that. Looks pretty amazing. And opponent played this artifact here just to tap it and, make themselves mill cards. That way they can get their combo online faster. So I knew the clock for me in this game was definitely a little bit less than what it typically is. And there my opponent went ahead and used the haggle again. So this here made me realize that my opponent was actually short on lands. So the pressure that I was feeling before definitely was not as bad anymore. But, like you all can imagine, Dredge being such a consistent deck that's been around the format for so long, my opponent starts getting their combo online. Narcomoeba hit the battlefield. Luckily, there was no prized amalgams or anything else in there yet. Then for me, I ended up drawing into Tron. Now at this point in time, I pretty much have the option to go get whatever I want from my sideboard. And Gravedigger's Cage is typically the best thing in my deck against Dredge, just because it stops creatures from entering the battlefield from your library or from the graveyard. So went ahead and played it, and went ahead and fetched the Cascading Cataracts. And then here my opponent, still continues doing their combo just because that's typically what their deck does. And one thing I kind of didn't really expect is that Thoughtseize here, and my opponent went ahead and took Nicol Bolas Planeswalker. But I wasn't too concerned about it. After taking Nicol Bolas Planeswalker, attacking directly to me and just ignoring Karn Great Creator was the goal at this point. But for me, since I have an abundance of mana now, I'm just going through cantripping, just fetching lands and stuff. And of course, since my opponent knew I was in my hand, and since I was, using all those cantrips, it was just a matter of time before I was able to, finish out the game with either Karn Great Creator or Karn Liberated. Just because now my opponent's library was shut off with Gravedigger's Cage. So no Narcomoebas could enter the battlefield anymore. Also no prized amalgams or anything could enter from the graveyard. So yeah, my opponent went ahead and scooped there. But I want to say they were an excellent opponent, pretty cool. And they gave me the okay to upload this video on YouTube, which is why I'm doing it right now. But yeah, extremely cool opponent. And hey, while I'm here recording this video, I'm also watching Doomwake on Twitch. He's a pretty amazing streamer. I tend to learn a decent amount of stuff from his stream. Also, his idea on a lot of decks are usually very accurate, even though it might not be a deck that he plays 100% of the time. But he's very knowledgeable, so if you all are looking for someone to watch on Twitch, I highly recommend you all check out Doomwake. I am gonna leave his Twitch link in the bottom of the chat, along with a couple other people. So yeah, if you all want to check out some cool people who play Magic the Gathering and are very knowledgeable, just go ahead and, click on one of the Twitch links in the description. And if you all do go check them out, just let them know that you came here, that you came from Tron Walker's community. Alright, I appreciate you all checking this video out. Thank y'all for the support, and I will catch you all later.